ethnic group in the world has been as relentlessly persecuted over the past several decades as ethnic Greeks in Albania. And no other minority has continued to suffer as much since the fall of communism as the Greek community of northern Epiros. Northern Epiros is a strategic piece of territory the size of Delaware, facing the heel of Italy just below the narrowest point in the neck of the Adriatic Sea. Because of its position at the gateway to the Adriatic, it was arbitrarily made part of Albania when it was freed from Ottoman rule in 1913. Italy and Austria insisted that it be put as part of Albania to avoid either Greece or Serbia controlling the gateway to the Adriatic. Although the people of northern Epiros were, by language and national sentiment, Greek, as Ismail Kemal, the founder of modern Albania, himself stipulated in a letter in 1907, they found themselves a minority in a hostile land after 1913 that regarded them with suspicion and persecuted them relentlessly for the rest of the century. The persecution reached unimaginable levels during the long communist rule of Albania under the brutal dictator Enver Hoxha. Tens of thousands of ethnic Greeks were exiled to other parts of the country in the north, where they were completely cut off from their fellow Greeks and their culture. Thousands more were executed, and many thousands were sentenced to long prison terms at hard labor for expressing any loyalty to their ethnic identity. In 1989, as late as 1989, the American journalist Robert Kaplan went to northern Epiros, and in his book, Balkan Ghosts, he offers a vivid glimpse of what the Greek minority there has endured over the decades. I quote, "Under sodium lamps I examined the faces of these ethnic Greek Albanians," he wrote. "The expressions in their eyes seemed far away. They were like shadows almost. In one home in the town of Sarande, 5 members of a family crowded around an old black and white Russian television set to watch Dynasty and CNN on a Greek frequency. 'How is life here?' I asked. 'It's fine, we have everything we need,' the father told me, but the children remained silent. The oldest son accompanied me back to my hotel. 'I was secretly baptized,' he confided in the dark. 'I am Greek. What else can I be? I believe in God. All of us here are fukaradas.' 4 days later, in a nearby village, 2 Greeks were shot trying to cross the border into Greece. Their bodies were hung upside down in the public square." End of quote. Everyone hoped that when communism finally collapsed in Albania and a new, ostensibly democratic government was elected in the spring of 1992, these abuses would end and the full rights of the Greek minority would be restored. But the new government in Tirana has continued the oppressive policies of the past and promotes a new Albanian chauvinism that threatens the very existence of the Greek minority in the country. In the fall of 1993, for example, the Albanian Minister for Education ordered the closing of all Greek language classes in the 3 most populated towns in northern Epiros, where Greeks number from 45 to 60% of the populations, actions that the European Parliament rightly condemned in a resolution. Even in other areas, the so-called minority zones, where Greek continues to be taught, classes have been cut back and schools have been closed down or burned. Where 355 Albanian schools offered Greek before World War II, only 63 do so now. And while students who want to take English or French in Albanian schools can do so merely by signing up for them, those who want to take Greek must show proof that both their parents are ethnic Greeks, a clear case of targeted discrimination. The aim of these new restrictions is to send a message to ethnic Greeks in Albania that their children will not be able to learn any Greek if they stay in the country, and to pressure them to move their families south to Greece. It is a subtle form of ethnic cleansing and violates all existing international norms regulating the treatment of minorities, as well as all obligations undertaken by Albania in the past toward its Greek minority in the historic ruling of the Permanent Court of International Justice, that Albania cannot withdraw rights from the Greek minority that it had previously granted to it. While the Albanian government has made a big deal out of permitting the restoration of religion in the country, scores of churches belonging to Greek communities, as well as church schools, monasteries, and tracts of land have not been returned. Valuable icons and religious artifacts taken from churches and monasteries have not been returned either, and the government shows no inclination to restore them to their communities. The government has refused to pass a law that would recognize Archbishop Anastasios as the leader of the Orthodox Church in Albania on a permanent basis, and has refused to allow 3 bishops appointed by the Ecumenical Patriarchate to help the Archbishop re-establish the Orthodox Church, because they're not Albanian citizens, in violation of all religious standards prevailing in other democratic countries. Discrimination against ethnic Greeks in all aspects of public life is rampant. For example, in the Delvino region, whose population is 60% Greek, not one public office is headed by a Greek. In the police department of 68 officers, only 3 are Greek. Of the 60, in Ayas Arantes, where the Greek population is over 40%, Greek participation in public administration is limited to 3%. Public officials use their positions to harass, threaten, and exploit the Greek population, who have no recourse to the courts or the security forces because they are barely represented in them. When ethnic Greeks are robbed, raped, or beaten, or when their homes, businesses, or churches are set on fire by gangs of thugs, the authorities take little interest. This strengthens the belief of most ethnic Greeks that such attacks are orchestrated by the security forces as part of an effort to drive the Greek minority out of Albania. The actions of the government leave no doubt that there is a concentrated effort to drive ethnic Greeks out of all position of power and influence in the country. During the past 3 years, for example, the Albanian army has systematically pressured ethnic Greek officers to resign from their ranks. As a result, there is not a single officer above the rank of sergeant in the Albanian armed forces, although there were more than 1,000 of them before the present government took office. The present government is led by a man named Sali Berisha, a man of considerable intelligence and charm, who has been able to obscure his sorry record on human rights by portraying himself as the first Albanian leader to build true democracy in the country, and by telling anyone who expresses concern about the Greek minority that he is ready to solve all its problems. But in reality, he has consistently reduced their rights rather than expanded. Supporting this scenario is Mr. Berisha's call for self-determination for Albanians in the Kosovo region of Serbia and for constituent nation status, which includes the right of secession for the Albanian enclave in the western part of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. If that happens, it will create conflict throughout the Southern Balkans that will involve not only Albania, Serbia, and Skopje, but also embroiled Greece, whose territorial integrity will be threatened, and Turkey, a supporter of Albania. Greece and Turkey, as we all know, are both members of NATO and armed to the teeth. They are also regional adversaries, and if they tangle, the United States is the only country that can even try to separate them. To do that would require a lot of American troops and cost a lot of American lives. As long as the ethnic Greek community survives in northern Epiros, it may check Albanian nationalist ambitions to create a greater Albania, because any rebellions in the Albanian enclaves in the former Yugoslavia might force Greece to move into northern Epiros to protect ethnic Greeks in the area. But if the Greeks are driven out, conflict in the Southern Balkans involving American forces and lives is certain to follow. For the sake of stability in the Southern Balkans, for the sake of many thousands of American lives that would be lost in the conflict there, but most of all, for basic human decency, we must do all we can to ensure that the ethnic Greeks of northern Epiros survive as a community. Save them. Thank you very much.